Right, let's jump into it. 11:39, a little bit later this morning. It's 29th of August, so coming right into the sort of end of the month here. And Friday morning, so end of the week as well. So this is actually the last trading day for the month, of course, because September, the summer period is over come next week. And I've got a massive week coming up next week, actually. Like the NFP is obviously the sort of the big one that everybody's touting and looking for. But of course, we've still got JOLTS as well. We've got ADP, which is, a little bit of a mover, but I've covered this a number of times. So the ADP really, I think, sort of at its heart, people want to sort of think it's a bit of a precursor for what the NFP will be. But the reliability of that actually going the same direction, or I mean, even if it's the reliability of it being an opposite, it just goes in and out. It's not a good indicator of sort of what's to come with the NFP. So they're the big ones because obviously job seems to be what they're sort of touting at the front. Um, Before we get to that, though, obviously we had a little bit of data overnight. It's been pretty quiet on the data front this week and that, but we had in on the topic of jobs, we had unemployment claims, which came down. They're expected to come down, but back into the 20s over here. So if you have a look at this, we had a little bit of a sort of push up, now sort of cooling back down. So, again, jobs, as long as they're sort of not accelerating to the top side, it's not seen as too bad. Didn't help US dollar. US dollars just bounced from range to range, basically, like top to bottom, and now we're seeing it sort of bounce off the bounce off the bottom. But that's all right. I mean, that's what ranges are, and called the top the other day when it sort of clipped out that sort of Jackson Hole level, and it's basically just sold off since. But we'll get to that on the charts and that. GDP up a little bit. It was expected to tick up a little bit, came in a little bit stronger there. Again, look, positive for US dollar, helped it for about a split second, and then they smacked into it. So they still had unfinished business down at that support level, which they drove it down to. And we're seeing a little bit bid sort of early in the session today. The other one was this Waller guy, and Waller just like I covered this yesterday, sort of like because this was going to be before I had a chance to do the analysis today. But he is like he's the one of the original dissenters and that sort of, well, I don't know original, but him Bowman. But again, he's come out sort of like with this thing, this sort of speech and that this sort of more this morning, sort of saying that sort of like the way behind the curve, and that is basically the same sort of rhetoric. They need to cut, but now he's come out saying that hey, look, they need to cut like probably 4 or 5 more times. So I mean, even at 25 base point cuts, that's bringing it down. I mean, where's US at the moment? US is at 450 or 4.5. I think they were talking about trying to get that down to 3%, which is massive. And you know what I mean? It's the big question mark over him is that sort of is he just touting and being the mouthpiece for Trump, because Trump is going, hey, look, we want it down 100 basis points and should be Powell should be fired and let's sue him and all this kind of stupid shit. Is he just sort of really just sort of like playing that card because Powell's going to be done in May and this guy's going for the top job, and obviously sort of like if he kisses the ring of Trump, that he'd be at the sort of front runner for it all, because he's coming out very like we know he's going to come out very super dovish, but this is kind of like extreme levels. So interesting to sort of see how the market digests through that. They haven't really seemed to care too much in that. I said, the technicals seem to be playing more of a part than any of these sort of bits of sort of fundamental news at the moment. So we'll see how this sort of plays through. See if the market can kind of sort of shrug that off. They are a little bit this morning anyway. As I said, USD a little bit on the bid there. Gold coming off the highs. Gold I'll get to in a moment, but it seems to be the pattern at the moment. Sell in Asia, buy in Europe, and they took that right above 34 yesterday. See if it can hold above 34. Back to the news. Bit of Aussie data out just before. Seemed to have had a pretty good little reaction for Aussie, actually. Aussie's just jumped, about another 10 points. It was coming right down and then boom, completely undid it in a few minutes. So not something that I would have necessarily been looking at to see Aussie sort of like push up, but Aussie back up above 60, 65, pushing 65.40 at the moment. Seems to really have sort of reacted well off that sort of super strong CPI the other day. That was an insane print. I don't think I've seen a jump that big in one print for quite a while. Certainly not in that direction. We had some big drop-offs in that, which obviously get large impacts. But yeah, Aussie dollar very much on the bid at the moment. Um, Going through the rest of the data here, we got a little bit of German CPI. Yeah, may impact things a little bit. Obviously, Germany being sort of one of the larger parts of the euro economy, but PCE would be the one that anyone would probably sort of mention tonight. I wouldn't say this is the big one in that now because no, typically PCE would be something that they're looking at. And if this comes in shock, not saying it will, but if this comes in as a shock higher, well, then you probably could see people go, hold on, wait, maybe inflation does need to be part of the story. But I would say more so if this comes in flat or, in the ballpark, it just reaffirms what everybody seems to be talking about, that sort of, jobs should be the thing that we're looking at, not inflation. And PCE is the one that people say that, well, the Fed say that is their preferred method of looking at inflation. So, if this sort of comes in sort of as a bit of a non sort of mover, then you might just sort of see them go, hey, see, told you, inflation's not really there, and what we're looking at actually is the jobs numbers, and of course we got all the big ones coming next week. So that'll be sort of what's on the card. So yeah, in terms of data, again, pretty quiet. The whole week's been a bit like that, but that's all right because it's the quiet before the storm, and we're going to get a big one next week. So we've got US dollar coming down here, and where are we here? DXY, and this is what I was saying yesterday. That where were we? On a little patch here, we had this little zone that it was trying to hold through here, came down, tried to hold, boom, and this is around the data, one of these sort of points over here, came down, and as I said, clipped into this bottom side of the range. So that's what I was saying. If we didn't take out this level over the top over here, this midway support, to sort of confirm that to move up there, then this was where we were sort of destined to sort of come to, with a little speed bump in this area here. And if you step back a little bit, you can see that, here's our big range that we've got in this yellow box here. These are the little midway sort of levels, or this is the midway one, but these are the levels here. We've seen the market have reacted to these, but they're not the major levels. So what you kind of call speed humps. So as you can see, pullback levels, support through there, these kind of things. But it's not like, okay, this is a big turnaround. Come out the top here, bang, down to the bottom, down to the bottom, to the top, to the top, to the bottom. I mean, all in all, if you sort of go, again, sort of go back onto this and go, okay, look, here we go. And you say, and you look at it like this. You say, okay, look, it's moving down. Yes, it's certainly not bullish, but this is sideways. You know what I mean? Yes, it's sort of like, getting smacked here and there with it all, but I mean, this whole sort of trajectory that we were looking at sort of previously coming down here, for the time being, has sort of somewhat sort of started to go sideways here. Like, yes, if you take the chart from here to here, that's down, but we're very much still sideways here. And as I covered, we are in a bit of a range at the moment. Let me go back over. Oops, this one here. So I think these are certainly the levels that are sort of marked out, and that you want to see price go above or below to actually confirm our direction. Because as you can see, we've tapped into the bottom here. Market goes, yeah, it's enough for us, and then, okay, let's try and sort of push it up here a little bit. If you get into a lower time frame, we've actually just come through. Move this out of the way. We've just come through a little sort of falling resistance as well, down like this. Market's gone, okay, sweet, let's buy it up, and they're pushing up here. So again, same sort of deal. You want to get above these highs. You could maybe expect it. It's hard to sort of get on the well, it's hard to commit to sort of staying on the bandwagon for US dollar strength, because it's just, they just love selling this thing down. But, these are the midway levels. You could probably expect market to sort of attempt to sell it back down from these levels over through here. But I think if you can get back up and recover that little midway point and obviously take out the wick, so same place where I've got that sort of alert back over, 98.25. If you get above that, well, you're most likely going to see it run back up to top side over here. Um, Look, it's been bashed down so hard. It's hard to sort of go, yep, this is where it's going without sort of feeling a little bit silly. But realistically, it's in a range. Ranges will continue. I know this seems a bit sort of very profound. They'll continue till they break. Yeah, that's great. But you know what I mean. Like that's the whole point of it. It's sort of, till we get the sort of data next week, we can just only assume that this kind of continues more sideways. So because we're coming off the support, it's more likely that we probably get a little bit of a continue, at least to the middle of the range. Jump on the 4 hour. This is oversold. You could continue if we can hold this move up to the top here, then you could expect a little bit of a drift up over here. Now, these things could turn, obviously. It could just go like this, a failed bit, and then bang, down over here. We haven't had the second effort of the sellers really coming down here. As you can see all these times, here's one effort, second effort, bang. One effort, second effort, bang. So we haven't had that sort of second effort after the sort of connection here. So it could roll over and sort of have a little bit of a pushback down to the bottom over here. But I would be surprised if we get major breaks with all this data coming out next week. We'll see how we go though. But in the short term, what's the tradable sort of thing? You can see that obviously it's come through this little sort of falling resistance here. I move up to say 98, 98.12 around this kind of midway point where we had that support. This was like the sell down after what was it, that Cook situation, which just is yet another uh, I don't know if you want to call it stupid, just, I don't know, distraction. Distraction is probably a better word. Stupid and distraction, both of those both fit. Bit of sort of news coming out. I mean, he's like firing her because she had two houses or something that she took a mortgage on and put both of them down as a um, place of residence or something like this. And you can tell that it's one of those things. I mean, all these people are doing dodgy sort of things. I mean, I'd be very surprised if you kind of scraped beneath the surface with a lot of people that they can't dig something up. He wanted her out because he wants to basically, Trump wants to fill the Fed with people that are very dovish, want to get that follow his way of thinking, which is get the rates right down. So what he's trying to do is sort of like find all these things. Oh, here, you see, you took me two mortgages on the house, yada yada. Firing her for cause, which I don't think that is actually firing for cause. I thought firing for cause was actually you did something like on the job or something. But anyway, whatever. Point is that sort of like he's found some reason to fire her. Now she's trying to sort of sue him. She's trying to sue Powell as well, for whatever reason. But yeah, it's again that kind of stuff's just a little bit of a garbage distraction. But as you can see, initial sort of move down here. This is more, I would say, just because any sort of intervention with the Fed by Trump, the market does not like US dollar fall. And we saw this. Bang, we sold it down. It got over it very quickly and moved and sort of like cut that out. But again, any sort of stuff that comes out with that, you see the market go, nah, and bang, and they sell it down, sell it down. So it's just something to keep an eye on, and that's how you'd probably expect US dollar to continue to act till that kind of stuff gets a little bit sort of like at least sort of resolved or pushed to the sidelines. But anyway, point is that that was a sort of significant level market brought it back up from. It was the bottom of that little inverted head and shoulders that sort of led back up to the test of the top side of the range and undid that Powell speech level. So, you could expect that probably you're going to get some sort of reaction here. So look, it could see a little bit more of a drift up here and maybe a bounce back down here and sort of move around here. But yeah, at the moment, look, it's come through a falling resistance. That's what you want to see when things move through falling resistances as well. You want to see the market go, yeah, okay, great, bang, not sort of dribble out to the side. If they dribble out to the side, it's more likely that they're not paying attention to that and it's just going to continue down. But when you get a big sort of move out the top over here, if it can, where are we at now? 11:53. Looks like it's going to close the hour fairly strong. Maybe a little back test and continue a little bit higher there through Asia session. We'll see how it goes with gold as well. Like gold was one that here we go. Where was it? This was the wedge that I was looking to play, and look, we had a bit of a negative divergence. This is on the 4 hour there. It's obviously continued up here a little bit. So look, I mean, technically that is still a negative divergence, and it has sort of popped out to the top side over here. So I think very crucial for gold long is to hold this level here. So test that 34, which it is starting to come back down towards and test now. But to me, that's going to be crucial because not only is this sort of like technically, if we sort of look at this from a long point of view, you've got a breakout here above these highs, This would be your back test, and that'll be your way forward. So that's one course of action. If the sort of bulls are going to take this here, um, if not, if this breaks back down below this, then you're looking at this play here, which obviously came a little bit higher, but that is the sort of play. Comes out the top here, taking out the stops above this, and then sort of comes back down. So I think this is the crucial area for it to hold. So I'm looking at 3,400 because it's a big round number. If US dollar gets on the bid, maybe this can impact it and sort of cool it down a little bit sort of through here. But if this breaks back down here, this becomes a fake breakout, and fake breakouts lead to sort of deeper sort of corrections. We can look at these kind of levels, probably sort of around 84 for the next level there, and then deal with these ones when you get down there kind of thing. It's a little way off right now, of course. But they're the two course of actions. Either it's going to be a fake breakout here with a negative divergence, up, to the highs, take out the stops. Now you can cool it off, or it's going to hold here. Buyers are going to go, yep, cool, I was trying to short, didn't sort of take the first hit, bang, and they go, okay, this thing's going higher. They close their shorts, people jump in for the retest, buy it long, and moves back up the top over here. So, the fact that it's selling down, it's not a shocker. It's been selling down Asia. I said this yesterday as well. If you look throughout the week, except for this one move here, which was that Cook comment, which obviously then got sold into afterwards, it gets sold down in Asia, and despite sort of all the sort of talk of China buying, it gets sold down in Asia, bought up in the US. So where was the open here? I had a look at this on a different chart. Look at the retracement on this. So that was the sell down in Asia. Like this, let's go down, and you can see a 200. So there's your sell down through Asia, and this is where the buy up, basically. I suppose partly through Asia there as well. The move off the sort of that sort of confluence of the horizontal and the rising support there, but 261 retracement of that sell down. That's massive. So, I mean, look, again, this is only purely for fun, but say this comes down here and retests 34 and holds 34. Whoops. Well, that takes you way up over here. I mean, look, it's not to sort of say that will happen, but given on how much we sold down yesterday to where it ended up last night at its peak, or overnight at its peak, should it come back and test 34 and hold 34 and then break this high over here, yeah, you got some sort of resistance around the sort of 34 30s, but there's a good chance you push up into the 50s through that. You know what I mean? That's certainly it's on its way in that. And if we get the retest here and take out that high, I mean, look, there's parts to this. You need to get the retest, you need to get the higher high, but there's no reason that this thing couldn't definitely sort of run up into, at least test this zone over here, the 168 retracement of it all. But it seems very much sell down, buy back up. Regardless of all that, work with that when you get there. But the test of 34, I think, will be interesting. This is where I want to sort of see what the market does. Look, if it rallies even earlier, well, there you go. But at the moment, that's where I'm kind of looking to see if it's worth buying this thing and sort of trying to sort of carry up, or if it comes down here. Look, you'll get a reaction here regardless. It's just a matter of whether the market holds it, and then your battle line there. So basically, the way that I'm seeing this is that this will be coming back here. It'll bounce a little bit regardless. Your battle line then becomes this level here, and whoops, wherever it bounces from. So say it bounces from there. That'll be your sort of thing. So you'll get a reaction. The question then is, does it break this one first, or does it break that one first? Yeah, or whoops. Oh, here. So we'll have to sort of see how this one plays out, but yeah, that's where I'm looking at. Move along, we've got Aussie, and Aussie back on the absolute rip. Look, nothing seems to be sort of wanting to stop this thing at the moment. It's respecting the chart well. Look, I mean, as we said it sort of came through, hit these 20s yesterday. Again, bit of a pullback, 15 points or so. But once it got back on the bid, oof, up to the top side. So I think a lot of this is actually powered also by, I mean, obviously, look, we had the strong CPI, it's a very strong CPI, but also we've got a very strong yuan at the moment. China is absolutely ripping. That's coming down into some major supports. But we are seeing Aussie come back through this major falling resistance here. And as you can see, it's a little bit wedged at the moment, like, well, not wedged, but like, you know what I mean? It's hit this horizontal, it's reacted back down. That's provided a test and a very strong reaction, actually, very strong reaction off this top side of this sort of falling resistance through here. And this thing looks like it wants to sort of charge a little bit more. We just ticked over to 12 o'clock, did we? Yeah, so I mean, look, we're in striking distance of moving up to these levels over here. This is actually at the 78% now that I look at it as well. If we drag this all the way across here. So 78%, that horizontal, again, what did we get? Sort of 10 points or so. It sort of came back down off that, and it's just charged up through it again. So look, a clear break above here, above 46, I think you pretty much look, it's fair to sort of say that up to the 60s would be the next sort of point of call, to retest those highs. But certainly sort of coming through this falling resistance puts it very much back on the bid. This thing just refuses to die. It's look, it is one of these sort of things. I mean, look, on a broader sort of sense, you could say till it sort of gets above maybe like over, I guess above these highs over here, so above sort of those 60s. So put it up into sort of, it gets to 65.80. Well, okay, you're going back up to test above 66, you'd probably say. But, where's this little thing gone? That is a little bit of a sort of rounded top, yeah. So we are actually getting significant lower lows, lower highs, sorry. We had at least a flat line of these lows over here. So, if had this sort of come down here, then it would have confirmed it even more. But this is sort of slightly rounding top over here. Look, it doesn't mean that it can't just then sort of go screw you and just charge all the way up over here, particularly if we see continued sell-off of US dollar across the board. That CPI print really sort of changed the sort of outlook of things and that. And I said this in yesterday actually because I could obviously sort of got this one wrong, but I thought we would have broken back down underneath here because I do believe that we have some unfinished business over here, which is where Powell's speech was from. So we'll see how we go. Look, it may take a while. Obviously, it's moving in the opposite direction of this right now, so it's not about to happen now. But whether this happens today, well, it's not going to happen today or tomorrow. But at some point, let's put it over here because most likely, if it does come, it'll dribble back down over here. But anyway, whatever. That's not for the here and now. Here and now, it looks like it wants to charge up through these levels over here. Are we looking for the RSI? Looking a little bit cooked on the 4 hour. And up into this zone here. If we see, look, that's as I said, so like if we see US dollar sort of continue to bid, it may sort of make it a little bit harder for it to move up the top over here. But certainly, I think sort of short-term targets, if you're looking for top side in that, another 10 points to the 50, or possibly a test up into sort of like maybe mid 60s or so. But as I said, 60s is a zone that always provides a little bit of a sort of a swing point, whether you're long or short on Aussie. So, I mean, it's I'd say it's the top side, at least in the short term into the end of the week, is probably capped. I don't think we're going to get sort of any sort of major breakouts. Silver pushing through that sort of little falling resistance and seem to have sort of shot back up the top over here. Again, look, it's sort of like I've been trying to call it, like I haven't traded silver, and the reason being is because I keep trying to call it, and it moves in the opposite direction. So one of the big things about trading is, I mean, preservation of capital, and if you're not calling it, well, just don't trade it. That's the kind of feeling. So, I mean, look, this thing's moving fairly well. I do like this little sort of potential channel um, that it could be sort of dealing with at the moment. Touches here, touches here, touches here. which can provide a little bit of a topside resistance, come into a little bit of a wedge. This is more sort of intra-channel kind of thing. But, again, look, to me, it could go either way with it all, and that's why I'm sort of steering clear of this thing, and I'm trying to hold on to my cash. But basically, look, if we break back down below, let's get this out of here. Break back down below this, or through this sort of rising support, you could have a little bit of support down at sort of 827, but I'd say that's probably the level that you probably confirm that you come back down to the bottom side of this channel. But to me, the channel seems the only sort of reliable sort of thing at the moment. Everything else seems to be chopping around sideways. Got back up here, you're into another level of some sort of horizontal. I would say move up to maybe sort of 39.30, depending wherever it sort of comes in contact with this sort of rising resistance. That could offer a little bit of a sort of push back down there, but it's not something that I'm willing to sort of stake too much on at the moment. Move along, we got copper. Talking about things that refuse to die. This thing sort of just seems to be grinding sideways now. So we've had the sort of retest of the underside of this channel, pushed and made a lower low, which is great. And then obviously that was just a bit of a fake out and it's shot straight back up into it now. So this is the kind of stuff that we expect more of copper. It's kind of little fake outs and this kind of stuff. But again, I think this little sideways grind box, this little range will sort of give us a direction. So yeah, I mean, it did test out here one time. Obviously, that sort of got people a little bit off guard and sort of shot back up into here. But it's another one that I'm not really sort of overly interested in at these levels. And this is the one that I'm sort of talking about at the moment. So this is China, sort of, well, the yuan coming down here. And this is what I'm talking about. This is coming into a big confluence down here. So, more medium term, we've got this sort of falling, this sort of like falling support, sorry, which comes down around this zone over here. We have, if you step back out on this onto a daily, we've got this sort of like big, actually, hold on, was that weekly possibly even? Weekly level down here. Probably more so, not so much as sort of support through here. A little bit, I guess, there, but I don't like to have these things too large. But that's kind of like a support area, a little bit of a sort of managed to close above, yada yada. Anyway, point being is you got a horizontal through here. You've got a very big rising trend line here, going back to sort of 2022, July, June 22, May 22. This is not going to break easily, in my opinion. I mean, look, we could see anything happen because obviously the PBOC sort of like kind of really push this thing whatever direction they like. And you watch each day that they come out with their fixings, and they say there's like this expected fixing, and then it just keeps coming out sort of stronger and stronger, and it's like the strongest one since here, because they have a 2% range that they can move in, which is still a lot. It's a lot on any currency, but it's a lot for the yuan because the yuan doesn't really move a great deal. Intersession and that even weekly, typically it kind of just really dribbles a bit. But if we sort of say the fixings here, so go up 1% here, actually make the whole thing 2%. So that's kind of the realm in which it can kind of like bounce for the day. So there's your 2%. So that's kind of like, so the idea being is sort of like, if you put your fixing, right in the middle here, well, that's your band that you're playing for the day. If you put your fixing stronger, so stronger one, so lower, well, that's your band for the day. And you can kind of see that they're applying pressure to make it a little bit stronger. Let's see what happens when it comes in contact with this sort of rising support. I've actually been talking about this rising support for like the last year or so, because this is a weekly chart. So, maybe last year, I don't know, long time, since certainly when we're up around here. And, the moving price target was up along this line, coming along here. So should we get a big reaction from here, though? This is what's interesting. Should we get a big reaction from here? Let's get rid of that. This could be a very big ascending triangle, which means we could be seeing some serious strength with the yuan to move it back up like this. And why this is important is because there's a very strong correlation, obviously, with Aussie. Aussie is sort of like, a stronger yuan will very much sort of put Aussie in favour because they're the biggest sort of trading partner. More strong, well, stronger cash over there, more cash over there. They've got stimulus coming out or whatever. That will sort of keep Aussie on the bid. Obviously, if it does move up, well, that won't put Aussie on the bid. But also with gold, there's quite a strong sort of correlation as well. So, again, sort of as this moves down, we saw gold breaking out, or breaking up a little, breaking up a little bit higher as well. So I think this will be quite a crucial sort of point for the market to keep an eye on. And if we get back onto our little 4 hour, the here and now, you can see it's coming into this zone. I mean, we're talking like, very, very tight sort of amount of space here. There was a strong reaction on the open this morning. That's fine. That could just be the fact that it's just been absolutely obliterated overnight. But we are coming into this quite a crucial point. Look, a breakdown underneath this, that's considering both sides of the coin. A breakdown underneath this, it fails to hold this, and they take it down lower towards 7 or so. You're going to see gold pump. You're going to see Aussie pump. And, that's the same time we'll see DXY sort of probably break that range and break back down towards the lows. Because, DXY is still, like, even though it's in that range, it is actually still off the highs or the most recent highs. So we do have these other sort of support areas down underneath here. We've got, even just going back to July, and then we've got, of course, start of July. They're both in July, that one. Oh, it's on the 4 hour here. Those two lows as well. So, yeah, it's sort of pulling back here and looks ugly and it's in its little range. But we do have lower levels that we've actually had support more recently as well. Most likely, if you do come back to hit these, you're going to see that momentum of this carry down, and at least minimum, you're probably looking at 96.40. Those sort of tests of those sort of more major lows. But as I said, sort of like, you'll see that at the same time as you probably see the Yuan sort of break through these levels down over here as well. So obviously, US dollar selling across the board. All right, that's it from me.